My video's still on. Hello, everybody. Want to thank you all for making it out tonight. Welcome to San Jose Public Library's first virtual local Black Artist Showcase. My name is Ebony A. Harris. I'm a librarian at the MLK Branch Library in downtown San Jose. And my beautiful co-host for the evening is Tiffany Bradford Oldham. And I'll let you tell you guys all her numerous titles.
Thank you, Ebony. Yes, my name is Tiffany Bradford Oldham, and I am the branch manager for the Alum Rock, Hillview, and Mount Pleasant branch libraries. I am also the one of the core members for the racial equity team and one of the coordinators for the Black Affinity Group. So we are happy to have you here this evening.
So once again, we are very enthused that you all can make it out. And we're going to have an amazing time. I say amazing because of the 5 wildly talented artists we want to introduce to you tonight. We have Mr. Christopher Williams, Miss Delgreta Brown, Miss Paige Mason, Miss Shani Williams, who is here in spirit. She actually pre-recorded her presentation for you all to enjoy, and Miss Aambr Newsome. This showcase is part of San Jose Public Library's Black History Month celebration. However, we would like to and are planning to continue programs such as Black Art in the Library throughout the year, as we feel that celebrating our community should not be contained within a single month. So we do hope you look forward to future events as we acknowledge that supporting, strengthening, and promoting our art community, especially during the pandemic and post-pandemic, is imperative as we navigate and cultivate this new and hopefully more inclusive, tolerant, and understanding society through such things as artistic expression and celebration. So tonight, our 5 artists are inviting you into their worlds of art for 15 minutes at a time. Please enjoy and feel free to engage with the artists. We want this to be an immersive, interactive experience. If you did not receive a program for tonight's event in your email, I'm also going to post a link in the chat where you can download the program so you can see who's in the lineup, learn some biographies about the authors, and get their links for tonight if you would like to purchase some artwork or just follow up with them and learn more about them. Our first artist in the lineup tonight is Mr. Christopher A. Williams, who I am told is also known as the Black Da Vinci. The stage is yours, Mr. Williams. You should be able to share your screen because I co-hosted you, but let me know if there are any issues.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate everyone that came out, and I really appreciate the invite. I felt really honored. And anytime I have to, I can do something, about our culture, I'm all for it. So this is wonderful. So my name is Christopher Williams. My website is theblackdavinci.com. And my art solely is based on the foundation of Black joy. And if you really think about Black joy, they say joy is a radical act. Now let that sink in for a second. Joy, being happy, is a radical act. What is that? Why is that? And so I start to break it down to the basic elements. I'm Black. That's it. For me to be happy, and someone to see me happy, that's a problem. Why is that? So I wanted to express that joy. I wanted to give people my joy, what I experience in everyday life. And, that's what my art's about. Just to talk to you a little bit about my pieces, I'm an oil painter by heart. I do illustration. I do some short film, but I love to paint. And I love to paint, certain aspects of history, whether it be biblical, whether it be,
Chris, I think we're having some connection issues.
Are we still there?
There we go. Okay.
Okay, that was weird.
A little bit.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
It's like, why are we? It's like I updated my Zoom and everything. What's going on? Okay, so this piece has to do with the relationship of my father and growing up in church, in the Black church. This was inspired by his Bible, and on the chair, you'll see a old beat up Bible. I mean, if you see this Bible, it's duct taped. It's like the biggest Bible that you ever seen, because he's a big 6'4", 300-pound Black man. And he used to read scriptures. And so I was really fond of that moment, growing up in the household, just spending that time with my father and him telling me who was Black in the Bible. That was joyous right there. Queen of Sheba, King Solomon, King David, all those people in the Bible were Black. And, to see them depicted in, in Eurocentric times where they're white, that's not correct. And so it was just good for me to sit there and just take that all in. And then I wanted to paint, different, aspects of friendships to family, to friends, which that piece led me to this one, which is called My Blackness Weighs Heavily on My Mind. And this piece, done in watercolor, acrylic, and oil, and used all the particular elements there, has to do with the everyday struggles of being Black, walking outside, and trying to cope with all the perceptions that society puts on you. This piece right here, which is the basis came from a Portuguese style painting. I loved it so much that I wanted to kind of create something similar. And this one's called Sleeping Angels. And this one has a double meaning to it. So this one has to do with Black death, and also two young women dreaming of a better life. And when you're thinking about Breonna Taylor, and you look at the halo, and you look at the way they're laying down, they're either laying down sleeping, or unfortunately they're passed away. And so the things that I like to do when I paint is have two different allegories going on to get my viewer to think about, what's going on. There will be a more peaceful note, and there'll also be a more, hit you in the face, note. And so in this piece, it really resonated with me because of what happened to Breonna Taylor. I wanted to paint something similar in her honor without painting her, if that makes sense. I didn't know Breonna Taylor, so I don't think it's my right to paint her. So I wanted to paint a story that represents her, if that makes sense. This one right here, another biblical piece, just like the one Honor Thy Father. This one is Queen of Sheba and Queen Esther. This one has to do with my wife, my beautiful wife, who's sitting in the chair, and my friend Alicia, who is in Oakland, and she's every bit 6'5", without heels. Just a really, just awesome presence, awesome personality. And so I wanted to put these two strong Black women in my life into a painting and, have a little bit of a biblical story behind that. So my wife, I think she's just a queen in herself. So it was fun to sit there and paint her skin. She has dark skin, and I wanted to depict her skin, in purples, lavenders, and some light browns. This piece is every bit 7'2" as well. This is a really large piece. This piece is titled Atlas. This was in honor of one of my friends who contracted ALS. And so he wanted me to paint some sort of like Greek, mythical thing for him. And so this piece is in honor of him. And I depicted Atlas struggling to hold up Earth while having ALS. And if you could look at the black cherubs around, the onyx cherubs, they're trying to help diagnose and figure out the ailment that's going on and try to make him comfortable while he's struggling to, do his duty. This piece is titled The Long Goodbye. It's one of my favorite pieces. And the reason why it's one of my favorite is I did this in about 2 sittings. It's wet on wet. So about 8 hours, I finished this piece. And it just has to do with just relationships, has to do with the selfie and the gaze of the viewer. This particular piece, the next two that you'll see, is part of the Lift Every Voice series. And this is my, I don't know, as far as like the skin tones, this is where I really started to dive into purple and the history behind the color purple and the royalty behind the color purple. And just a side note, way back in the day with Caesar and Queen Elizabeth II, only the most royal families can actually wear purple. And how they made purple was they aggravated a sea snail with a stick in the water, and they kept poking it to get this particular, color. And so when you think about Black skin and how, we look at Africa and the diaspora and we come from royalty, I think, and I associate the color purple with our Black skin. This is Lift Every Voice Part 2. All the pieces on here, which you see the 2 pieces, there's more, but these connect like a puzzle. So you can interchange them, which is pretty cool. This piece is titled Black Rage. I haven't done a lot of pencil sketches, but I really do enjoy it. Even though I am a diva, I'll admit that now. I do not like paint or any type of graphite on my hands. So I have baby wipes in my studio. But I really love to get in there and really draw the figure. And this piece has to do with a particular experience I had in Portland, Maine, being the only Black man at a grad school and pretty much the only Black man in town. So I dealt with a lot of racism. So instead of speaking out on it, I like to put it on paper for people to see what I experienced. This one is called Disruptive, Disrespectful, and Rude. This piece, again, I painted this at grad school in regards to just the everyday experience of a Black man, walking out, or we speak out. We're disruptive. If we say something, that we don't agree with, we're disrespectful. And so I wanted, people to see in black and white with these red letterings, what these words, have and how powerful they have and how much they affect our mental health and psyche. This one, I really love this piece because I have been inspired by this Harlem Renaissance artist ever since I began to draw. And this is Augusta Savage. If you do not know Augusta Savage, I suggest that you look her up because her sculptures are out of this world. And she actually started, before it was the School of Harlem, she started the Augusta Savage School of Arts, which later became the School of Harlem, which is phenomenal, phenomenal. This one's titled King David. As you can see by a lot of the portraits, I like my figures to gaze directly at the viewer, not as a sign of confrontation, but as a sign of respect. Like, I see you, you see me. And I love to play around with the texture of the canvas, play around with these like really bold colors, like you see in kente cloth and you know, colors from either Cameroon or Brazil or West Indian, any type of West Indian like fabric. I'm really like drawn to, and I wanted to really put that on canvas. This is what I'm working on now. This one is called Trinity. And these are really like 3 special people that are now residing in Maine, and they're doing art in Maine. But these women and like just gave me the best time in Maine, and I love these like my little sisters. And so I want to, you know, like, I don't know, glorify them in a way that has to do with the texture of the hair, their culture, experience and likes. And so this is a piece that's in progress. A lot of paint in that hair. It's really, really thick. And that's one that's in progress now. This one's titled African Gothic. Like I said, texture, beads, and a Maasai warrior. And I'm just really intrigued with like the beadwork and the texture. So I've in the process of doing another painting right now, which you'll see in just a moment, that was based on this one. And a side note, because I'm a Marvel fan, because I love Marvel comics, this is actually Storm from the X-Men. So I'm nerding out on you. Please forgive me. All right, so next. And this is the final slide here. This right here doesn't have a title, but I wanted to show you the process on how I build up the purples and browns. I start off with an underpainting of ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson, because I found that when you, you know, put the lavenders and purples and pinks, like our skin often radiates, it seems to have like this like glow, and you can kind of feel the character of the figure, and you can kind of, you know, get a sense of their soul, of what you're seeing. And that's a little bit about me. I just want to say thank you very much. And I really appreciate you guys. And then you also get a nice cool heart with the anvil animation. There you go. And so thank you guys so much for everything. And I really appreciate being a part of this.
Thank you, Christopher Williams. Can we get a virtual hand clap? Next up, we have our wonderful Delgreta Brown, a contemporary and Afrofuturism visual artist. And Delgreta, whenever you're ready, the stage is yours.
Great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to jump right in. That's a hard act to come behind, Chris. Man. Black Da Vinci. Okay. So I am a contemporary and Afrofuturism visual artist. I've been practicing my craft for about 14 years, predominantly working in acrylic paints. Also super capable of working in graphite, clay, murals, installations, spray paint, you name it. I'm not traditionally taught. So I'm self-taught largely, and with some schooling. And much of my work pretty much just focuses on navigation, femininity, identity, spirituality, And so you're going to see a lot of that resonate in my work as I pull it up right now. Okay, can everyone see what we're looking at? Okay. So this was my show that I did last year called Dreams and Abstract Vibes from the Rift. It is a virtual art show that is kind of in a virtual 3D space, virtual gallery setting. And it was something that I kind of had to get into due to the challenges as the pandemic created. Since a lot of artists weren't able to get out into the community and share our art in the traditional settings that we're used to. So I had to kind of innovate. So this piece right here is called Kings, of course. And I really wanted to kind of talk about Black men being regal and appreciated. It came at a time where I felt that Black men were being under attack, and I wanted to uplift them and put them in their natural state. So they are shown with kind of this natural, they have the natural hairstyles. I always like to show versatility of our hair. And again, that's a metaphor for just allowing us to be our natural selves. This piece is called The Path of the Giraffe Through the Tiger's Eye. And it's an abstract work, and much of the pieces in here, they have some sort of abstract feel to them. Even with Kings, of course, you have the kind of this abstract geometric embroidery along his shirt and on his shirt and along, which is also found in a lot of African clothing anyway. So the Path of the Giraffe is an Afrofuturistic piece, and it's really just talking about gemstones and being able to see in the future. Giraffes have an elongated neck, and in shamanism, they symbolize being able to see into the future. So I wanted to kind of mash that up with the title, and that's what that piece represents. I'm not going to go through all the pieces just because I'm concerned about time, but I started experimenting more with these freestyle geometric graffiti-esque type shapes. And this is something that's been emerging the past 3 years, I want to say, of my arts practice, because I realized I wanted greater expression with my artwork. I didn't want to just focus on doing portraits. And that's a sign of growth, I think, by going into other styles. And I also think that just being versatile, it allows me to present potential collectors with other options for my artwork, because not everybody enjoys just portraits. So this is Upgrades, which is centers on technology. And this is kind of representative of the abstract computer chip. And then you have this DNA strand that's kind of floating around the background. And I've heard some people say that the woman in the center represents Africa. It can also represent kind of this DNA strand is kind of like the trade, and then the computer chips begin to kind of represent land masses. So it's a lot of symbolism. Again, some more geometric freestyle type work. And we're just panning around this room. And I have some smaller pieces here. I'm gonna shift out of one tab and go to, I don't have a seamless presentation the way Chris has, but I'm gonna roll with it anyway. Okay, and I also have some images from the recent show that I was in titled The Black Woman is God, which also happened last year, predominant Bay Area art show that they actually have the new show up right now, but I was a part of the 2021 showing of that. And these are some of the images that were also in that show. I'm very proud of this piece. This is called The Watchers. The Watchers is and it's probably just going to rotate on its own, but The Watchers is a unique piece in that it uses light in a very different way that I wasn't accustomed to. I actually did this work for the Nightlight Multimedia Festival at Soma Arts. And they asked participating artists to show work or create art that is specifically created for a dimly lit setting. And so this piece is unique because it has 3 different light settings. It looks like this in natural light. And then when black light hits it, you're starting to see like a different type of perception. The black light activates the paints and we get the jungle comes alive in the background. The skin of our people, the people in this painting, becomes more radiant and brilliant. And then when the lights go out completely, they are watching you. Your eyes are following you around the room because I use some. I'm not going to give away all my secrets, but I use some different pigments to create that illusion of the eyes following you even in the dark. So 3 different settings. Let's see, we're gonna go. This is Exodus, which also talks about the diaspora, the African diaspora, all kind of coming to one point or one singular consciousness. Earth represented by different realities. And this is a sci-fi piece. Some of that kind of comes to the forefront in my work as well. Science and myth, and as well as themes of navigation. This is A Fear of a Black Nipple, which has to deal with matriarchy. I think Black women don't get a lot of recognition in society as the mother of civilization, and from all of life, she gave life to everyone. And the Black mother is someone that is often overlooked, and Black women's bodies in general are not appreciated. So, and this is Celestial's Insight, which has to do with the nature of space. And I wanted to give it a persona, and I felt that space was feminine. And so I just was like, the triple darkness. 3 is a sacred number. And I just wanted to just talk about how the sheen of Black folks, it'll bounce off of anything. The melanin, the carbon in our skin, even in space, there's darkness, but there's a radiance to it. And that's what I have prepared to share with you guys today.
That was sensational. A virtual hand clap from Ms. Brown. All right, Ms. Mason, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Oh, do I just share the desktop? Is that what it is?
You can share a desktop, or you can say share.
Oh, you know what? I don't think my window's up. That's why.
Okay.
There it is. Okay. I'm like, wait, I don't want to share my whole desktop. Okay, there we go. All righty. Let's find you guys again. Here we go. And yes, thank you once again for having this space for all of us to share our craft with all these wonderful strangers that are taking their time out tonight. So we really appreciate it. Okay. All right, just for a small intro, this is just the homepage of my portfolio website. For me as an artist, I would say I'm fairly literal. And just like our Black Da Vinci, I love drawing and painting joy. A lot of my work involves young Black children. I really enjoy focusing on the hair. You'll see a few of these items as they're scrolling through. I do have a presentation set up where I'll be able to slow down and kind of pinpoint some of the work that I make. But I am a freelance illustrator, and I also teach elementary art. So I'm definitely surrounded by children. I have 3 of my own. I think ever just since growing up, I've kind of wanted to just hold on to my childhood. I had a lot of fun. I was a 90s kid. And what can I say? Like 90s was, that was the era. Let's just talk about that. But I really just have to give thanks to my parents. My dad was a natural, or he is a natural artist, would sketch things on napkins for me. My mom's a teacher. She taught us how to make crafts. We would make our own Valentines growing up for our classmates. So it's just having both of those talents, I think, really influenced. My sister's a performing artist. So I don't know how happy they are that we're both in the arts, but they definitely were there to support us, whichever way we wanted to go. One joke with my sister, I have 3 children of my own. She swears like I manifested my kids. So this logo that I have here, if you can tell, it is supposed to be a young girl with puffballs. If you'll see a picture of my daughter soon, a lot of my work is very reminiscent of her. I have a collection where it's all pretty much I'm honoring this little child of mine. She's full of personality. I kid you not, she could be the next Junie B. Jones. And then you'll see like a couple of other pieces popping up with my sons. I recently just had a child about 5 months ago. So on social media, I do a lot of work of my family. So he'll be popping up in some of those illustrations soon. But let me take you over. So when I was making art, and I definitely didn't think I would be selling it or, presenting it to the public, I noticed that I really wouldn't use color. And when I say color, like I never really drew my characters as being brown. And I think it's when I thought, hey, I could possibly like sell my artwork. How would people, would they, purchase it if this person was straight, the color brown? For me, I think, you could tell she was supposed to be, at least for me, I'm like, okay, well, she is Black. I gave her the curly hair. I always thought I drew my noses to be similar to, the wider nose of a Black person. But I just never thought, brown was going to be accepted. But, I kind of bursted out, and I want to thank San Jose. They were probably my first craft show that I did. And I had a variety of these Black and white characters alongside these brown skin characters. And people were wanting them, whether they were Black or not. They were like magnetized to them. So I'm like, okay, this could work. So with my other pieces, I was like, you know what? I'm brown. My art should show that I'm also brown. And you definitely will see that. I'm kind of do this in chronological order to where you'll see some of my work starts to transform. And I have a couple of other pieces where I kind of get away from just drawing children. But once again, I love showing the texture of hair. And I love creating stationary pieces. So like postcards or, cards, just kind of trying to hit the realms where you really wouldn't see very many Black individuals on a birthday card, on a postcard from California, just kind of hitting those marks, or just a sticker in general. So I definitely knew that's what I wanted to do. I illustrate a couple of books, and I'll show you a few of those too. And it's been great because I've been hit up by like smaller artists, authors. And for example, one, she works in the hospital. So I made a book with her about a young girl who is connected to a tracheotomy machine. So it's these very like specific subjects, kind of, I want to say not unpopular. Well, no, I will say unpopular, but you don't see books about that, especially with young Black children. So, just having these works of art out there, just showing people of my color in these situations, I think it's just really opening the door. Okay. And then, so these are images on Instagram. I started a hashtag called Juby Tuesday. It was one of my ways to trying to get me to draw at least once every week, just create that habit. My daughter's name is Jubilee. So a lot of these photos are based off of her and just her little attitude. And then it's so funny, recently, I don't know how many of you are on social media, but there was a photographer or a mom who like blew up. She had her daughter dressed up like Spider-Man, just like this. So it was really cool. I have no idea if there was any connection there, but I'm like, see, it's possible. Like we could all be Spider-Man with puffballs. But yeah, so my daughter, my firstborn, she definitely kind of created this new character for me that I was able to share with the world. And then here, I think I started finding a little bit, I would say like a mature style of my art. Still very, I would think, cartoony. And I failed to mention, I work primarily with watercolor. Some of the sharper details, I do use pen, and a little bit of gouache to get some of these more solid, darker colors. But once again, just showing the Black person in, you know, she's a mermaid. Like, how often do we see, you know, us in these fantastical situations? And then here, if I have any Star Wars fan, this was for May the 4th be with you. Once again, referring back to Instagram, they have what's called Mermay. So in the month of May, an artist, Tobin Craft, he's like a former Disney animator. He started this hashtag. So it's once again, just encouraging artists to create mermaids all of the month of May. And then once again, you can see the texture of the hair. And that's the fun thing with watercolors. You can get these really cool layers of transparency to really show the thickness, the kinkiness, the curls that we're proud of for how thick our hair is. And then, hey, we can rock a straight bob if we want to as well. And it could be green. So, and now with living in San Jose, I've had some great opportunities. Local Color San Jose is probably one of my biggest organizations I always try to work with. They always have great opportunities. And they were the first ones that got me into public art. So if any of you are in the area, know of Nirvana Soul Cafe. This was part of the mural of the 100 block mural San Jose. They pretty much chose 100, maybe a few other, like 100 plus artists, and we all got to paint in one square. So this was mine, just my bubblegum girl, once again, just going back to being a kid and, you know, having that big old chunk of gum and blowing that bubble. And then, so with the Local Color organization, what they do, they're a nonprofit. So they go around San Jose and they look for buildings that are condemned. And they get it up to code to where it becomes a temporary space for artists. And until it's actually going to get demolished, they're able to use that space. So that's kind of their goal. They give artists a temporary space. If they're there for 3 years, depending on what the demolition schedule is, they might be there for 5 more years. And this was actually in that downtown Ross. It used to be a Ross, and it's, I think, on First Street. I think it's the same street as Cream. I can't remember, downtown San Jose. But anyway, this was where they did have those temporary spaces. And when I guess the city was going to demolish, they were like, you guys come in here, let's just mural blast this place. So there's paintings you can kind of see in the back here. They just brought in artists who they've worked with, and we always got a chance to paint some walls, paint some, what are these called, cubicles, and just really, you know, blow this space out. I also want to take time on this because this is soccer, like that was my sport. It's still my sport. And I always told myself when I was younger, I was like, Paige, just play soccer long enough to get your school paid for. And I'm fortunate to say that's what I got to do. So I did go to school on an athletic scholarship, and I made sure that, you know, art, that was my priority. Like my major, I'm going for art. If your school is not what I need it to be, I'm not going there. So I was very fortunate in that sense to be able to choose and be picky. But soccer definitely helped pave that way as well. Okay, so also with Local Color, this was part of their, sorry, give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So this was another Local Color project. I'm trying to think, was this might have been during the pandemic. So it was another one of their beautifying projects. And in downtown San Jose, I think it was about 10 or 12 of us. They just asked, would you guys want to paint some windows? So these were some buildings that are once again condemned. And they were like, you know, any kind of plants, fauna, whatever you'd like to do. And staying true to what I love to draw hair. So this is an actual plant. I can't remember its like scientific name, but you know, you see these plants, I think of puffballs. I was like, I'm gonna stay true. I love drawing hair. Like, let me do something fun and funky. And that's what I did here. And I also love butterflies. So I stuck some butterflies in there as well. And this was maybe about took me, I'll say maybe two or 3 days. But that was another fun project with Local Color. Okay. And then also in midst of the pandemic, we also had our unfortunate events with the Black community, a lot of the protests happening. With me having my 2 children, there's no way my husband and I, we would be able to make those, active protests, those rallies. So for me, what's the one way I could express myself is once again, do illustrations. So, I have my children here and that's the 2 of them. And I have them here on this illustration. This is a mural that I worked with a couple of friends. And that's one thing I always try to do, especially when it comes to like public art. If my kids can see me in action, even if it's one day before they start breaking down and they want snacks, I'm like, just bring them out. Like they need to see what mom does. And, I'll let them paint. I might have to fix it later, but it's okay. All that matters, they just get their little moment. But I'm for the kids. I paint kids. I love to create stories for kids and I have my own. So if they can be involved in any kind of way, I'm for it. Just live my process work. Excuse, I think that might be my dog's nose. So I'll usually work from sketch. I love working traditionally. I'll show you down the road. I do have a book that I actually did make all digitally. That was quite a challenge, but for the most part, I'm usually a traditional artist, pen and paper, paint and paper. And then thanks to Local Color, I really challenged myself and went big. The biggest I probably go normally would be maybe 11 by 14, but usually 5 by 7s, maybe 8 by 10s. So doing these murals have really, really challenged me to work big and think big. And this is the final product. So just lots of bold colors. I had a couple of friends join me in this. And it was, I'm like, you know what, this is the only way I can express how I'm feeling during this time. And just, this is me kind of literally making my mark in downtown San Jose. This was another project with Local Color. This was, I think, my last project with them. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, so this was probably my last biggest project with Local Color. And if you are in the area, it's like the newest Sofa Pocket Park. So here you can see we have the plants growing. It's a fresh farmers market. And on the opposite side is actually a dog park. So it's a really cool space. We did have to, it was an application between 35 artists. I apologize, I don't have everyone's, I would love for you to see everyone else's artwork as well, but it was in partnership with the Textile Museum. So for me, I went with the mud cloth patterning of African printing for mine, and then also kind of bringing it in ties with, getting our hair braided. This is idea of weaving, and then these really cool patterns of the African culture. And once again, of course, like I said, if I can have my kids there, they're gonna be there. And believe it or not, this might scare some of you, I was pregnant during this time. It's kind of funny. I feel like most of the projects I've done with Local Color, I've been pregnant. But they were very like, Paige, are you okay? Do you need water? How are you doing? And I'm like, I'm good. So they definitely know me to be the family lady of the art group. Okay, so here they are again. And then I've also done some of the chalk art festivals in San Jose at Paquisto Park. So this was, I think, my last piece for them before the pandemic hit. And like I mentioned before, my kids they're my biggest influence on a lot of my artwork. And this is once again me, I can draw with chalk and like, I wouldn't pass that up. This is once again me just hanging on to that life of being a kid. Making art and just having a lot of fun with it and just showing us, when I say us, Black kids just having fun. No ties, nothing. And this was actually during the pandemic, since there was no chalk art festival. I think there was a bit of a miscommunication, but they were saying if you were to draw chalk somewhere else, feel free to do it. And they would like make a geotag. But I think they actually did some kind of open chalk art like the following week. But anyway, so I drew these in front of the SJ Made. So SJ Made is another organization in San Jose, and they have these really cool storefronts called, I think, moment.sj. And those are really cool spaces. I reached out to the leader or the organizer of that group, and he was like, sure, go for it. So they are also another organization that I do participate with. The next event with them will be their Friends Fest. So I'll be headed out there middle of March, and I'll be offering pieces to buy during that time. Okay, I believe this might be my last slide. So these are just a few illustrations from the couple of books that I have published. So as I mentioned, I have an author who I'm working with, and she's focusing on the different machines that are used in the hospital. And she definitely knew she wanted to use someone of color. And I was like, sure, like you don't see this often at all. So just the topic itself, the individual, the main character, it's just something you never see. Here on the right, this is from my book, Papa Dude. And just illustrations, just once again, a story that's just a relationship between a grandfather and his grandson. And for me, that's kind of the stories that I do gravitate to. I appreciate those books of history. And I think we're seeing that more and more these days, are just seeing Black characters in just fun stories, you know. And don't get me wrong, like the historical books are like, those need to be made too. But for me, for what roots for me is just showing a kid just being a kid, and, you know, just normalizing, yes, Black kids do have family that are well off, you know. And that's one thing I will say, this author was like, let's give them a nice looking house. I was like, yeah, let's give them a nice looking house. So just really kind of switching that narrative and just normalizing that we are like many other people. And then for this middle one, so this was my challenge. As you can see the difference, this was all done digitally. And like I said, I primarily work traditionally, but I will say working on this book, it was tasking, but it was worth it. I definitely would not be opposed to doing more books digitally. And it was a lot of fun. And I think the colors really pop. And then it's just, you know, just being an artist, and a couple of my fellow artists before we mentioned, you know, when you start trying different techniques, whether it's going big or trying different materials or media, I think that is showing growth for you as an artist. So I really appreciate working on this. I think that might be my last slide. It is. So yeah. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Paige Mason. Sorry. I did have a timer running for everybody. You were perfect. A virtual hand clap for Paige. That was so much fun. And thank you for giving a shout out to 90s kids, because you got one right here. I think Tiffany is as well. I think everybody in this room might be a 90s kid.
Pretty much.
Okay, so next on deck is Miss Shani Williams, and she did have a family emergency to attend to tonight, so she was kind enough to pre-record a presentation. So I'm going to play Miss Shani's video. And our last artist of the evening is Miss Aambr Newsome. Let me go ahead and co-host you so that you can take it away.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm just gonna, let's see. I don't know if I can actually share my screen. It's not giving me the option. Oh, there we go. Screen. Sweet. So let me know if you guys can see this. Wait, it's not. There we go. Can you guys see? Yeah. Cool. So I'm an artist. My name is Aambr. I do a lot of things. I am a live painter, a performance artist. I mostly work in acrylic, but I also do assemblage work. That's based in like found objects, sculptural work, and a variety of other awesome things. I also do illustrations. I'm pretty much like all over the place. I do a lot of art. So this is like an image of me doing like a live painting. I do a lot of those. And then I have like a bunch of other pieces that I've done that you'll see more of. A little bit about my background. I am originally from Sacramento, much like our fellow Chris over there. I grew up in Sacramento and I actually went to an art school from a very young age. So I've been like practicing art since I was about 12. So it's something that's like a second skin for me. It's like almost like first nature. Similarly to y'all, my family was very crafty. Like my mother was very crafty. If we had like a childhood classroom assignment for anything that was crafty, like we were going to sit around as a table, as a family at the table and work on it all as one. So I've always just been really, really about art. A little bit about the work that I do. So I am an artist that believes in two factions when it comes to art. I believe in, like what most of y'all have expressed already, I believe in spreading Black joy. And I also believe in social practice. Art as a social practice is really, really important for me. So I take it, as my responsibility to make art that helps the community of Black people that I'm from, but also that teaches people about some of the things that happen to us and some of the things that we've done to make life better for ourselves. So this work that you're seeing right now, these are two screen printed images. The first one to the left is a Black Panther mural piece that I did to help raise funds for different, like I was working with the Black Panther Party mural, the Women of the Black Panther Party mural in Oakland. So this was something I was doing with their images in order to like raise awareness of the project during that time. And God, it feels like it happened like 2 seconds ago. But Oscar Grant, he passed in 2012, I believe. And I was a part of a collective of political screen printers, and he came to our collective and he didn't come, his family came to our collective and they asked us to design a poster for them to protest with, because at the time we had been doing Occupy Wall Street posters, May Day posters, pretty much, and like, ending police brutality in general. That was like what we were doing. So we designed this poster. I designed it in collaboration with a friend of mine. And this poster was the poster that they used to protest with, but it was also featured in the film Fruitvale Station. So I'm like really proud to be a part of raising awareness for things like this that have happened. This is out of order, but I'll just go with it because, we're winging it. So earlier I said that I am a performance artist. One of the things that I pride myself on is a few years ago at the Black Woman is God, which you heard one of our other lovely artists mention previously. I had done an installation, and I also decided to cut off all of my hair in public in front of everybody at the art show. So this is what I looked like to the left. This is what I looked like before I cut my hair off. And I had some of my female friends holding space with me that day, and they had actually just cut their hair off, and I had never cut my hair off ever. So I thought it was something that I actually wanted to like make into a ritual. And it was something that I wanted to share with other people, and to just kind of publicly reaffirm my identity as a Black woman in space. And I feel like a lot of the time people have these expectations of who you're supposed to be and who your identity is, especially tied to hair. Like if you're a natural woman, you're supposed to be a vegetarian, and you're supposed to be peace, love, and all of that. And sometimes maybe you are, but you also have the right to be who you actually are, and to define that for yourself. So this was me at the beginning of the show, and then this was me at the end of the show. And I just walked around the rest of the art show with no hair, with no hat. And I refused to look at myself all night. I just wouldn't look at myself. And it was really interesting because a lot of my peers were there because it's, you know, an art show, and a lot of people I didn't know were there. And the thing that was really, really amazing about it was we had like an artist talk, and this woman was there, and she was looking at the artwork. And I was talking to her, and she was like, why would you cut off all your hair in public? And she was kind of giving me a hard one about it, actually. And I was just telling her, I was like, well, I'm still who I am without my hair. I'm still a strong, beautiful woman, despite whether or not my hair is long, or if you think I'm pretty with or without it, I'm still beautiful. And she started crying, and she took off her wig, and she showed me like that she was bald. She had been going bald because of cancer. And something about my piece was like really empowering to her. And so I felt like I was really blessed to be able to like share that with her, and to, you know, give her a piece of peace, I guess, in that moment, and for her to feel seen. So I really, really resonated with doing that. So this was supposed to be what you were supposed to see before, more political art. So during the Black Lives Matter movement, there were several things that happened. So there was the poster syndicate and the Women of Resistance, which is the piece on the left. And this is a piece that I designed for Kat Brooks. She is a activist, a poet, an actress, and she does a lot of amazing work in Oakland. I don't know if you guys know about her, but I wanted to do this piece with a bunch of other women who were doing, like, I think about 100 different women who are all political and all women of color, and we were all doing work to honor them. And so this art show had walls full of these posters. So I was like really proud to be a part of that. And then to the right is what I would call a remix. If you guys have ever heard of Emory Douglas, he is the person who was the illustrator for the Black Panther Party. So a lot of my work, I like to pay tribute to the people who inspired me, and to also just, you know, utilize their work to show that there's things that have changed, and there's things that haven't changed. So during the Black Lives Matter movement, when everyone was protesting in Oakland, there were a lot of Black businesses that were getting vandalized. There were a lot of businesses in general getting vandalized, but I was like, I don't want to see these Black businesses that I love and that I've grown accustomed to not be able to support themselves and sustain themselves because it's already COVID. And then now they have to deal with like repairs to their shop on top of it. So I remixed this Emory Douglas poster to show that Black liberation was a thing in the past that was an issue, and Black liberation is still an issue now. We might be free, but there's still liberation and equality and justice that we need. So I actually sold these posters as a way to raise money for those businesses that had lost money due to COVID, or who had been vandalized during the actual protest. So really happy to be able to share this. I believe that this poster was like around $1,000. It's not a huge amount, but for me, I was like, it's something. So I was glad to be able to give back with my work. So these are some of the paintings that I've done in the past. The piece on the left is actually talking about a couple of different things. Well, one in particular. So I'm actually an 1/8 of Choctaw Indian. My mother's mother was a half Choctaw and half Black, and so was her father. And so we're from the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians, which are Black. They have historically been taken from their indigeneity. It's been kept from them. So back when slaves were, well, enslaved people were existing in the South, they were alongside a lot of Native or Indigenous people. And some of them were owned by Indigenous people, but some of them were also like married and kin and family with those people. And I was lucky enough to be from that sort of family interaction. And so this is basically a piece that I created to talk about the things that my grandmothers passed down through generations in our family, and ways that we basically have like cultivated food and our existence and meals that we've shared through her basic lineage. I never actually met any of my grandmothers. My mother was 10 of 10 and my dad was 10 of 11. So you can already understand there were a lot of them. There were a lot of kids. So I was like one of the last, so I didn't get to meet them, sadly. But I still hold them dear in the work that I create. And I loved previously, another artist was speaking about how Black women are not often given the respect of being the bearers and the givers of life in, you know, the world. And so I created this piece on the right. It's called The Great Migration. And it's actually a piece that I did for the first Black Woman is God. That was at the African American Arts and Culture Complex. And this is just a piece that I created about, if you follow African religion or like Orisha religion, they believe in the Abeji twin spirits, and that they were born and birthed into the world to basically represent abundance and all that is good. And I'm a Gemini, so I'm always like twin gang gang. So that's what this piece is representing here. This is a piece that I created for an installation at Somart's Culture Center. Every year they have a Day of the Dead, a Dia de los Muertos show. And so this was my piece for 2020. And this was basically the theme of the work that year was talking about resistance and how we can honor our ancestors and our past while trying to focus on a brighter future. So this piece is basically talking about the past of people in my lineage that have like, or just as a Black person, the past of people who have been lost due to police brutality and the traumas and pain that that's caused. And it also ties into the concept that back in the day, our enslaved ancestors believed that they wouldn't get peace until they died. They believed that they would get peace once they died. They would be able to go back to Africa and be with their families. So the concept behind this piece is that we shouldn't have to die in order for us to gain freedom. So yeah, if you like look really closely, there's a couple of figures that are kind of like snuck in there for, you know, I didn't want to, yeah. So I don't know, I'll just keep going. So this piece is actually about, it's about the strong Black woman. I actually created this piece for the Charlie Wote Festival in Ghana. I was actually supposed to paint live there, this whole thing, but there was like a weird thing where I couldn't go physically, I couldn't be there. So I actually just painted it anyway. And it's basically talking about how the American Black woman is made up of so many different cuts of cloth and so many different cultural pieces, like the way that we do our hair, the way that we make our clothes, the way that we, you know, just like exist. It's all tied into so many different pieces of culture because our culture has been kept from us for so long or removed from us that we still are able to like pick and pull from these places and still find our beauty and our strength. And it's really just about celebrating that. And so, yeah, this piece is like one of my favorites. I love it. So going back to some of the political work I do, I am a screen printer, and sometimes I screen print on items that are recyclable or like old in nature. Like I remake things out of old items, and these are vinyl records. So the red and the silver are actually laser discs, and the black one is just a regular vinyl record. And it's about, I believe, 7 screens. So like each color is a different screen. And I had drawn this like years ago. And I just believe that like as Black people, we deserve the right to like defend and honor and protect ourselves, especially in a world if we're going to be existing in a world that doesn't really honor, respect, or protect us or defend us. Like, you know, our ancestors of the Panther parties and like current, you know, currently still with us Panther Party members, like they believed in those principles. And yeah, I don't know, I just wanted to pay tribute and homage to that. So I printed these records. It's actually quite a long process. It took like maybe like 2 weeks for the whole thing. There's like, I think about 55 of them. So yeah, something to consider. I also do a lot of work honoring Black bodies, and I like to paint them nude so that they can be free and celebrated. So a few years ago, there was an all Black nude session where there were Black models and Black artists just coming together to draw and paint. And I have a bunch of like little sculptures and like little sketches that I've kept from them. And so I just like come back to those images and work through and like paint them. So this is a great example of one of those pieces that came from one of those wonderful drawing sessions. And so this is an example of some of the 2D work that I do. I do 2D wooden installations, and I'm just like kind of showing you the picture on the right to show you like how big they are in space. So the 3 images here and then the 2 to the left, they were actually featured in like another exhibit where they were a part of an installation. And so usually I'll like draw on the wood and I'll like cut them out and then paint them all and then just finish them, and then they'll be adhered. So this is an example of the piece that I did for last year's, was it last year? Yeah, last year, 2021. This was my Dia de los Muertos installation for that year. This is basically called 9 Days, and it's about a ritual. I like to bring a lot of like ritual work into my work. And so it's basically about a ritual of uplifting your ancestors so that they can be healed and basically do magical work for you in the, you know, in their afterlife and be at peace in their afterlife. And the reason I made this was because I wanted people to know that even though sometimes in life there's a lot of negative things that might happen to our ancestors or to our loved ones, that we do have the capability of healing those wounds even when they're gone. So this piece is representing that. And it's a little hard to tell, but like the 2 boy figures are wooden, and so is the main central figure. And then there's like little pieces of photos of my past ancestors that are like put on canvas throughout the work. This is probably one of my favorite installations. I did this piece for Unbound Roots at Somarts, and it's about 15 feet long and 10 feet tall. The Heal Your Heart and the lions, that's painted on the wall, and everything else is a wooden cutout. So the woman is one cutout on the left, the woman on the right with the hair is one cutout, and then the one big central figure is 2 pieces of wood put together. And I included this piece because this was basically my healing journey, and I really wanted to share that. The show was about healing Black wounds and centering that in our work and being like mentally aware. And I wanted to talk about my journey and my process of like cutting my hair, of like learning to grow like food and other items for myself. And then, you know, just really like sitting with my inner child and talking to her and healing her and making sure she has what she needs. And this work is really important to me as well, because I feel like these are things that we should talk more about within the Black community. they're present and it's starting to be less taboo. But I think that it's wonderful for artists to be the ones to, make this visually appetizing like we do other things. So, and then this is an example of some of my assemblage work. So these are all found objects that I turned into art pieces. And I'm a really big fan of like reclaiming places, spaces, and items and making them into work. So the two on the right are actually dressers. And then the one on the left is actually an old speaker box that I found outside on the ground and like converted it into an art piece. And a lot of the things that you see in there, like they're my illustrations, but there's also items. I've gone on like nature walks and then just like held and found things that really resonated with me and added them in. Or I've like dried flowers specifically to put within the piece. And a part of it is like combining that ritual with art in order to like make my work almost like a prayer or an altar to the things that I'm like leaving. So like the piece on the left, for example, that piece is about like listening to my inner voice and like being able to just basically fine tune things through my own intuition. And then the piece with the child in the middle, that one is about like feeding your spirit. So they're like drinking from a gourd, but they're like actually getting like spiritual food from that gourd. And then the one on the right is called Adorn, and it's about all of the beauty rituals that we go through, but how sometimes inside we might still just feel like a scared little child. And that's kind of like our armor. And then this is what I'm currently working on right now. I am working on casting a series of faces and working on playing with different materials from Black history, whether it's cotton, coffee, tobacco, different crops that our ancestors grew and cultivated. And I'm playing around with them in order to have a conversation about these things that are everyday items, but that are like heavily rooted in our subjugation, but also our liberation. So yeah, aside from that, I am also currently working on the Black Warrior Mentorship Project. It is an art show where I'm honoring Bay Area educators, and it will be on display at Root Division in June. And yeah, that's it. That's for me.
Thank you so much, Aambr. That was beautiful. I had to mute myself because my neighbors are having some kind of party outside. They never do this, but they chose tonight to play their loud music. Everybody, please give a virtual ovation to our wonderful, amazing artists tonight. I'm so amazed by the presentation I just saw. So I did provide programs. Please let me know if you didn't get them, because this is how you can follow up with the artists that you just saw in this virtual room. You'll be able to fully engage with their catalogs and purchase work, or just contact them and continue the conversation. This program itself is actually supposed to end at 7:30 tonight, but I'm going to keep the Zoom room open until 8. So if you would like to stay and continue to converse with the artist, if you can stay around after 7:30, I'm sure the audience may have questions, or they may want to further the conversation about certain pieces that they saw. So don't feel that you have to rush off because this program ends at 7:30. The Zoom room will remain open until 8. Miss Tiffany, did you want to say anything?
Yes, I did. So first off, I want to say thank you all for attending, and thank you artists for presenting your work. You're definitely carrying on a tradition of Black artists that have always, tried to not only show Black excellence, but use art as a tool for resistance and resilience. So I very much appreciate that you are keeping this going. And I have been not only inspired, but now I'm like, ooh, my wallet is bad because I want some of your art. But again, and thank you so much for taking the time to present your work, because it truly speaks to not only who you are, your joys, your pains, your dreams, and your nightmares. So thank you again.
And now the floor is open to the audience. If you want to unmute yourself and speak directly to the artist, please go ahead.
If no one has questions, I'm going to make a sandwich on live right now in front of you. Unfortunately, I'm not a vegetarian because I need my protein, but I do respect my vegetarian and vegan brothers and sisters. So
I'm not a 1980s kid. I'm only 7.
oh, you're only 7. Are you an artist?
Yes.
All right. Let me see. Hold it up a little bit higher. Hold it closer to the screen, please. Ooh, that is cool. I love it. Look at you. You got some serious illustration talent right there.
Can you tell us about this character? Is this an original character?
Yes, it's original.
Okay.
This is what my sketch looked like.
Oh, cool.
So is
and
his
what's
head,
your name?
levitating off the neck?
Yeah.
My name is, you can see it on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, David. How you doing, Mr. David? All right. Nice to meet you. You got really good skills there.
So Christopher, let's see the sandwich that you're going to make. I hope it's as impressive as the artwork we've seen.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can cook. That's the one thing I could. I can cook, so I love to do it. So yes.
I like chicken nuggets.
Chicken nuggets are good. I love chicken nuggets as well. What I like to do is I'll mix a little bit of sriracha in my ketchup if I wanted to, or I'll eat them with mustard. So it depends. I lost you on that one.
That was my face of judgment.
That is right. Well, I do have homemade barbecue sauce up here, so I do that too. So that's funny. Well, I have a question for you. So this is the first time that you guys done this? This is the first year?
It is.
This is exciting.
We're looking forward to making this not only an annual thing, but a monthly thing. I don't feel that an event like this should be restricted to February or June.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Would it be something that you would do in person eventually, or?
We would adore getting to do events like this in person. We just don't know when that will be. We're hoping in June, at least for the Juneteenth celebration, we'll be able to have an outdoor function. But this virus and mandate county dictate what we can do. So we just don't know. But we greatly appreciate you coming on to do this virtual event.
Okay. And I would still reach out to Michelle Mansour from Root Division too, because that's a huge connection to other artists. And I was glad to see Aambr do this and Ms. Brown do this as well. And so, yeah, so it was great to see that. I was like, wow, cool. But there's a lot of artists that it's a good connection to if you wanted to branch out with more too. But yeah, you got, this was really, really awesome. I appreciate this.
Everybody was so amazing. And one thing I will say, when I did reach out to the Roots Division and the Bay Area Arts, Black artists, I received so much support. So many people emailed and said, oh, I can't make the event, but let me help spread the word. And that just made me feel so not adored, but, supported and loved. I was saying,
yeah.
We need to help each other.
That's awesome.
One question I do want to ask, I know a lot of you did work this into your presentations, but if you didn't get the chance, one thing I do want to know is how the pandemic affected your careers. Did you feel that you were able to branch out more virtually?
I guess I could start. The pandemic kicked me into high gear. And so when I saw George Floyd go down, and that put things in perspective, that I need to get out there and just paint and tell a story through painting. Even if it's just sitting in the studio for an hour, I need to go and do something productive, because my life can be taken at any time. Life is short. Tomorrow's not promised. And so by me being in the studio, I was able to create, and, and I mean, God bless George Floyd and his family. That inspired me to just keep pushing. And I think it had just like good ramifications for my career, to speak upon Black joy, and to speak upon, just like Aambr and just like Miss Williams and Miss Brown, speak on things that, relate in our lives, because, the African diaspora is not a monolith. We all have different perceptions, different perspectives. And so to me, the studio during the pandemic was the time to shine. And, I think before the pandemic, there was a lot of distractions. Oh, I want to go over here. I want to go to this restaurant. I want to go. And now I'm like focused. Can't go anywhere. You focus in the studio. And now things are starting to lighten up a little bit, but I'm focused in the studio. And I want to keep that.
Thank you for your answer. That was wonderful. Does anybody else want to take the floor?
I can speak. Yeah, I can definitely mimic what Chris said. Before pandemic, I was working like my retail job, as well as like painting. Painting was like my side chick, I guess, and pandemic hit, my job closed, and I was able to get unemployment. So like, it was like, I was like, okay, like, I don't have to worry about existing. Like, I don't have to worry about sustaining myself, because that's taken care of. And I was also a part of a fellowship that went virtual. So it was like, okay, I'm like, I have everything I need. Because at the same time, my studio was in my house. So like, I was able to just like really like go dumb. Like, I would like be able to like actually just paint all day long. And like the only friends that I had during pandemic were my art friends that were also making art. So it was like, if I got tired of being in the studio, I could go be in a community of people that were creating also. So I always had like some support, whether it was like a fellowship, whether it was just creating at home or going to be with my creative friends, which just felt like I felt really like I was held. But then also like, yes, like I felt like, okay, it's a pandemic. I don't know what this looks like. This has never happened before. I don't know if what it's going to be like in a year. I don't know like any of this. So all I could think of was I have to sustain myself. So I was like rereading Octavia Butler, rereading all of these Black books that were like helping me not only be inspired, but also showing me the way through pandemic. So like, I reread Parable of the Sower, and then I was like, okay, so I got to grow my own food. So I started growing my own food. I started working out. I started making sure I knew how to like get out and keep, I had like a seed pack and like an escape bag. Like I just had all these things. And then the Black Lives Matter, I don't really call it like a Black Lives, I call it like a reboot, because Black Lives Matter has been in effect for a long time. But during like the reboot, where it was like Breonna, George, like all of Ahmaud, like all these things were happening, I just felt like, wow, like I'm in the house, like I'm just in the house, and like this is still happening, so like I just felt like I needed to contribute. So that's where like a lot of my political art just kind of kept coming also. So it was actually really fruitful for me, but it was fruitful because I had something to say and I had time to say it, you know? But yeah.
Thank you. It's another wonderful answer. Does anybody else want to take the stage?
Yeah, I'll slide on in there. So for me, the pandemic affected me like much like my fellow artists here. I had a job. I've always had more than one occupation. And at the time I was working for a large corporation that shall remain nameless. And I began to question my worth and my value during the pandemic. And so a lot of my art that emerged around that time in early 2020 was focused on that. Subsequently, well, not directly because of that, but I ended up kind of using the pandemic to springboard myself into getting like my business together. Getting Aboriginal art had been off the books for a number of years, and I said, you know, this is the moment. If it's going to be now, you need to make your stand in terms of your creativity and just making a living out of it. Tired of working for other people, other things that don't have my highest intention or have my highest good, and don't value what I can bring to its structure or its you know, entity. Like I need to be my own master at that point, and master of my own destiny. And that's where I've been. And it kind of also forced me to look at, with the shutdowns of in the art community and curators not being able to curate shows in the traditional fashion, it forced me to look at other avenues, particularly online, e-commerce, virtual technology, anything. There's some explosive things that were happening in the tech space. And I became very curious, and I'm still very curious. And I'm hoping that as long as the outside is questionable, I'm going to continue to nurture my interior self, my everything that's on the inside that enriches my soul, and continue to share it with everyone, in whether that's in virtual space or digital, because I'm down with it. I'm going there.
Thank you for that answer. All right. Did anybody else want to take the stage?
Sure, I'll just add one little tidbit.
Oh, Paige, I think you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I was asking pause on the cutting. So, you know, what's funny is I think just like all of you, this was the time where we kind of paused and then really thought about, okay, what are we doing creatively? With me being a freelance illustrator, other people who were finding that creative, you know, that creative spark for themselves were then coming to me like, hey, I've been writing and I have a story. So it's kind of like it was working both ways, where I was able to collaborate with other people's creativity. And that's actually, I think, what I found I was doing a lot. It's like, okay, who else is creating? How can we collaborate on something together? For example, that Rematter mural that I painted, I made friends with the DJ over Instagram, and I was like, hey, can you make a beat to go with the time lapse of this, you know, my Rematter mural? So for me, I think I was definitely looking to collaborate and like see who else is creating. Let's make something together. So.
Thank you. Everybody had such wonderful, insightful answers. Would the audience like to ask anything?
It's me.
That's a self-portrait.
It's me when I was younger. I got a beard now.
That's very good.
You have a question in the chat.
Would you like for me to read it off? This one goes to Aambr. Just curious if that third eye had any special meaning in that last portrait that we saw.
The last portrait, I have to mentally think about which one that is. I use a lot of third eyes, so that's not like, how do I say? I'm always trying to connect with my intuition and with my spirit guides and my ancestors. So that's like never an accident. Like, yeah, I'm always trying to, like, if I could get the glow, like, I don't know if you guys have seen The Last Dragon, like if I could get the glow, I would get the glow. So I'm like, I do a lot of altar work. I do a lot of like, talking and spirit walks with my ancestors. So like, it's not a coincidence. It's there on purpose. It's definitely intentional. I'm just like trying to think of which piece was the last one, because I feel like I showed you so much stuff.
I think it was the piece where you had I'm guessing the woman who had the locks, and then there were the pair of scissors that looked like it was in the process of trimming them. And then, because I really like that piece too. I was like, ooh, I mean, a lot of your pieces, but that one was.
Yeah, thank you. That piece in particular, in relation to the third eye, that piece was more so about like I believe that you can't really be fully spiritual if you don't have your whole self in alignment. And that's something that like we all have to like work for. It might be easier for some people than others. And so like in the process of making that work and doing that healing work and having those conversations with my inner child and like going to therapy and like just trying to be a better person for myself, I feel like my intuition and my third eye and my alignment with those things are more in sync. So like, it's kind of like that piece is almost like an illustration, like, oh, like not that you have to do it this way. This was just the path that I took to my enlightenment and into being like a better artist and a better human and a better spirit. So that's why it was particularly placed there. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
He says, thank you. Any more questions from the audience? And I'm just going to let you know, if you guys are curious as to why I keep leaning this way, my microphone is over here. I should probably put it more towards the center.
Make the sandwich.
I have a question. I would like to know how my fellow artists are navigating the funding thing, because I noticed that we have 2 other artists that are from Sacramento, and my bone to pick with SAC for a long time is that the infrastructure is not here to support Black artists, let alone artists in general. And I'm wondering if you all relocating to the Bay, specifically Chris and Aambr, if that had anything to do with you all going to, because I'm in SAC. And I wonder if that had anything to do with you all going to the Bay Area. Paige, chime in too.
You want me to go, Aambr, or you want to go first? Okay, I'll go first. Okay. Well, okay, so Sacramento started my career. And Sacramento is what gave me the nickname the Black Da Vinci. And so, hold on one second, my wife, are you okay?
Yeah.
All right, so she's crumbling up paper and then doing something in the kitchen. It's gonna be really awesome. So no sandwich for me. But anyway, that's funny. So in Sacramento, that being said, in Sacramento, I didn't have any connection to other Black artists, period, which was like the weirdest thing. And I found out like, oh, we have a couple of Marvel and DC comic artists in Sacramento, like Robert Love, for example. And I was like, well, how come I didn't know this guy? And so I then began to seek out certain people, but we're like spread out. And then I guess like when I moved to the Bay, that's where I was able to connect with other, Black artists and other, creatives. And we kind of like, built this community, whether it be on Instagram or Facebook. So I'm not sure why Sacramento is not on the map yet, but I know there's Faith McKinney, who's out there, and she's doing some things with a lot of Black artists in the quarter, Black creatives. So but yeah.
I think, I don't know, I might be a bad example. I had been ditching school to come out to the Bay Area for like all of existence. Like I loved it forever. So my move was purely cultural, but not in the sense of being a Black person. I was just like, this is where the magic happens, but when I did come to the Bay, I moved to the Bay in like 2006. And I did leave Sacramento because at the time I was like really, really heavily rooted in punk rock culture. And there were like no alternative or like weird Black people for me to hang out with in Sacramento. But there were in Oakland. Like Oakland was full of like creative, like whether they were just like older and into like grindcore, hardcore, punk, metal, whatever. But then there were also like these graffiti artists and street artists, and they were like all Black, and they were really, really interesting. And so I found community in them like the second I got here, like maybe a year after I got here. When it comes to funding, when I was young in Sacramento, and this is also one of the reasons why I feel like I'm a bad example, because I went to an arts school. So like they had programs when I was coming up where I would be able to like spend my summer working on floats for the state fair, and I would get paid for that. Or they had like contracts with local theaters where I could do set design and stagehand, and I would get paid for that. So like there was this background of like installation work that I already mentally had, and that I could also like seek, funding for. And then when I came to the Bay Area, it took me a while. Like it probably took me like a good 5 years to where I met other artists who were doing public art. And honestly, a lot of the artists who I saw who were making money like off of art, they were people of color, but they weren't Black. They were just they were illustrating to me the path. And so I basically just got under their wing. Like there's this amazing artist, Juana Alicia. I'm not sure if you guys know of her, but she's a muralist in the Bay Area. She has a lot of murals in San Francisco, and she's one of the women who helped design the women's building. But basically I was able to like, kind of tag along underneath her and assist her and get paid gigs. And eventually I learned how to do proposals and grants and things like that. And that's pretty much been the thing that's like been sustaining me this whole time. So.
That's great. That's something I want to start getting into, is like learning how to write proposal grants. For me, I mean, moving to the Bay at the time, I was following my now husband. So he went to San Jose State. So we're both from the Central Valley. As I mentioned, I went to school and played soccer. So I actually kind of got kickstarted in Arkansas. So I went to school and I have a BFA in illustration. So my illustration teacher kind of hooked me up with like these Arkansan, like people, whoever needed illustrators, he was like, I have this student. And then I also believe I was kind of the token Black illustrator. So it was kind of that like now you see Black illustrators. Well, for me, just because what I follow, I see like now they're all there. Like you have who did the Little Leaders? I forget her name. But like there's like a lot of like Black illustrators now. But that was kind of the turning point for me. So they were like, oh, let's give it to her. You don't see a lot of Black illustrators. Let's give her the opportunity. And then also, I don't even think like I found like a Black art group, because in San Jose, I mean, people even say San Jose is not the Bay, blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, well, to me, it is, especially coming from Fresno. So yeah, San Jose is the Bay to me too. And I've been to Oakland, and trust me, I know the real Bay. So that's why I'm just like, whatever. But no, so like, I was kind of the token, Ashley Harrison, thank you. I feel like I'm kind of the token Black artist in San Jose, I feel. And I'll take it. Like, it's opportunity. But I do tell them like, hey, there's this artist here, there's this, and I'll tell like friends from Oakland, like, hey, there's this opportunity here. So I think that's also kind of helped me. And then as far as like sustaining, I do keep a job. So right now I am teaching art, but I tried to find jobs that would still, I didn't want to work retail. Like I did that, coming out of high school, and I told myself I'm never working retail again. And I've been able to land jobs that somehow I'm still able to practice art. Just working at a school, I think you can kind of get away with that, especially working with younger kids. I'm like, well, we're doing art, especially if I'm your after school teacher, just know you're going to get some fine art, activities. But I think I just kind of lucked out because there was not too many of us in San Jose. So they'd be like, oh, there's this person. And then not to say like, I definitely think, my skill, my craft was also worthy. But there's not a big art community in San Jose. So you might get some people from Oakland that'll come, come down, maybe San Francisco. And then I know there were it's a lot of the craft shows. The craft shows, that's where you kind of, I think you can network. But I think that's also a totally different realm. Like just seeing a lot of what you guys have, like your stuff, and I forgive me if I'm labeling, but your stuff, installation, galleries, like that's where I see a lot of your work, what it looks like to me. Whereas me, I'm thinking of like retail, stationery and stuff like that. So I think like working those craft shows help. And that's where I've had, local color. I was doing, it was some company, it was like Raw Art Show, and they would like host at different locations. So that's where I got information about local color. So and I think it was just that leap of faith, just like stepping out, whether it's a craft show or maybe it's an open air gallery, and, just be ready. Somebody's looking and you're just making those connections is what it's done for me. And just keeping those bridges, like staying on their radar. And I think social media, I don't know how much you all use it, but I know it kind of sucks, but that's kind of like, where you got to go. And then this whole meta universe, we don't have to get into that. I can't keep up with that, but so that's kind of my spiel.
But we'll stay in touch, Ms. Brown. So that way, we can be a connection with you too, and bounce ideas off each other. I think that'll be great. So
I've been doing blind copies on all the emails that I've sent out to you all, but I will send one with everybody's name and email address on it so you can reach out to network and fellowship.
Awesome, yeah.
And
I gotta follow
Ms.
Mason back too on Instagram. Sorry. But
I was just saying that question wasn't like taking shots at SAC. It just, the pandemic really showed some of the vulnerabilities in with the arts community as a whole, and then communities of color, because I know that they're rolling out like the basic income for artists, and I think that there's a couple grants that are just now coming down the pipeline. But I've been like paying attention to grants regionally and nationally for the past 3 years, specifically trying to see like where the funding was at for artists and then artists of color. And SAC they were really pushing the assistance for businesses. And that's another reason why I had to, formalize my art studio practice as a business, because there was no structure here to help artists. And that's just this ongoing conversation that's happening, but nobody's really pointing at it. So I just wanted
I think the Bay may have a little bit more money and really, funding the artist. Because when I was in Sacramento, I didn't get any type of funding. I was just doing everything on my own. And
Sorry, can I say this too? Not to interrupt you. I don't think that it's like, yes, the Bay has a lot of resources and like funding for artists, but I think they just make it more accessible also. You don't have to jump through as many hoops to prove that you're an artist and to get a grant as you have to show that you're a business. Like it depends on the artist that you are. Like you may or may not have to belong to, like you may or may not have to have a fiscal sponsorship. You may or may not have to have, a business license, but most of the time whenever I see grants here, the difference between grants here and there is that you can just be an artist and show your portfolio and actually get funding that way versus having to be a legitimate business.
That's 100% true. Yeah. So now I need to get rid of my unicorn outfit because I was going to wear that for the next grant. So now forget it. So, but no, Ms. Newsome, you're 100% correct. Because like I went out for the YPCA artist stipend, and I get $1,000 a month just to create in San Francisco, and that's like a big blessing. And so and that was passed on to me. They're like, hey, you should apply to this and just show your portfolio, artist statement, that's it. And that helps with paying for the studio at Root Division as well. So it's keeps me in line and it keeps me focused, and I don't have to really worry about paying a lot of bills because of that. So I'm hoping Sacramento gets something like that, and I know it's hard to kind of for someone to try to pull the funds to do that, but here's to SAC, and hopefully they can turn it around.
Thank you for all of this insight. I've been enlightened tonight. If the audience doesn't have any further questions, I have one last thing to ask, and then we're going to close out for the evening because it is past 8. But you've spoken on the Root Division, and I've mentioned that I reached out to the Root Division. But for those of us in the audience who may not be clear on what Root Division is, can anyone speak to that?
Yeah, so Root Division is a small collective of artists. We have Aambr, myself, and many others, like really talented. It's multi-cultural. It's really, LGBTQ safe haven to, Black safe haven. It's just an awesome group of artists together, just creating in their studio. And it's also a gallery. So Michelle Mansour, who runs it, they're reduced studio spaces that one can actually create. And if you're, for example, like a Black artist fellow, like Aambr, you can, get like a studio space that is paid for the year. And then, you're out in the community helping, teach at schools. I'm also another Black artist fellow. And so I teach at Martin Luther King Middle School, 2 days a week, about 2 hours. And it's really fun to get out in the community and to see, and for kids to see other artists that are a little bit different than them, or maybe the same. So it's a really good spot, and Root Division really helps to launch a career, and really stands behind and gives you shows and all that stuff. So for example, like Aambr, I'm talking for Aambr right now. I don't know why, but Aambr, she has her show coming up that's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to see this. And I know every time I walk by her studio, and I know she's at home too, but I kind of see stuff that she's working on. So it's exciting. So, you get things like that where normally you wouldn't get a show. And there's other spaces in San Francisco that, there's a lot of people in there, but you could be overlooked. So I'm glad that Root Division is there, because they highlight you, they back you up, they want people to get behind you, and it's really fun. So yeah.
Excellent. I'm sorry, my neighbors are showing out tonight. They are never this noisy. They must know that I'm hosting.
Can I just add one thing about Root Division? One thing that I really, really appreciate about them too is the amount of support that they give to artists that isn't just monetary or like about space. Like they also offer their artists like mentors. Like I actually have been lucky enough to be mentored by Sam Vernon, who is an amazing artist and educator.
Yes.
And I wouldn't have been able to do that. Like, I mean, I might have been able to do that, but Root Division was able to like put us together. And they also do gallery visits, and they will speak with you about your work and how to develop it further. And so I just really want to say, like, if you can be in the position to try to like get in there and apply, I highly recommend it. It will help you grow a lot.
Yes. And once again, Aambr is right. There's a trend here. And it's 100% right. Yeah.
Took myself off mute, watch them start making noise as soon as I did that. Thank you so much. This was
Thank
a
you.
beautiful evening. I could not have asked for it to go any better except for that video I tried to show. And I also want to say that I have never had a video act that way when I've tried to share it. This was truly a special night. But once again, people who are still here in the audience, an ovation for our artists. Thank you so much for coming out. Everybody have a wonderful evening. You enjoy your sandwich. Aambr, Delgreta, I don't know what all you have planned for the rest of this evening, but I hope you enjoy it as well. And if you have food, I hope it doesn't involve chicken nuggets and mustard. Yeah.
Not at all.
It's good. You gotta try it just once.
Never, never, never.
That's funny. Well, I'll see you guys later. I'll keep in touch.
All right,
Peace,
Have a good
y'all.
evening.
Bye.